Well, thank you, everybody. And MomoCon, we are very, very happy to be here. This is SEGA's first time ever attending MomoCon. So thank you guys very much, first and foremost, for having us out here, and big thanks to Chris Stuckey and all the organizers that made it happen. We really appreciate it. So, you guys are here to hear a bit about SEGA, right? Oh man, we're from San Francisco, by the way, most of us. I actually just got in from London yesterday on a business trip. And that reaction was kind of like, that's not good. So, you guys are here to hear about SEGA, right? Alright, I think we can work with this. Cool. Well, first and foremost, let's start with a little introduction about who we are and how we got to SEGA. And then we're going to go into a bit of the history of SEGA, and then we're going to do some Q&A with you guys. So, let's start on this side, Sam.
Alright, so my name's Sam Mullen. I'm from South Carolina originally. The way I got into the game industry is basically, I studied, I majored in computer science and have a minor in Japanese. I went to Japan for a while, learned how to speak Japanese, and since I got back, I've been working in Japanese video game companies, primarily specializing in localization and just bringing content from Japan overseas. And so I joined SEGA back in 2010 and been working here ever since.
My name is Steven McConnell. I've been working at SEGA for about 8 years. I started before in grocery management, so it really kind of is about the same. But it's been a really wonderful experience. I came in as a contract QA tester, and just kind of at every opportunity when there's more opportunities for progression, just kind of snatch it up. So after 8 years, got pretty much anything. If you guys have played any SEGA game that's come out in the past 8 years, I've worked on it.
That's what's up.
Awesome, alright. My name is Aaron Weber. I'm an associate brand manager at SEGA of America. 6-7 years ago, I was actually just like you guys. I was a huge SEGA fan. I'd always been out wanting to work at SEGA. Did anyone here play a game called Phantasy Star Online? Guys, we are going to get along very well. That game was my life. I played that game on the Dreamcast and the GameCube so much, and eventually they asked me if I wanted to be a volunteer moderator, to which, of course, I said, yes! And so I actually did that throughout the high school years and the first couple of college years, and one day I saw there was an opening SEGA for a position of Game Master, and I always thought that Game Master was one of the coolest sounding job titles in the world. Game Master. Game Master. And so I said, wow, well, I haven't actually finished college yet, but I think I'll just apply for that job, right? I read this book called The Alchemist, which was a really great book.
It's a good book.
It's all about kind of like just going after your dreams.
Yeah. So you guys read The Alchemist? You guys really should. If anyone here has not read The Alchemist, that's one of those life-changing novels.
It's good. It's good. So I sent in a resume. I said, that can't hurt, right? I sent in my resume. SEGA writes back. And I'm so excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, they actually wrote back to me. They're like, about your application, that's an old job. We're so sorry it's full. And I was like, oh, okay, well, whatever. I'll just go back to school and keep going at it and try and get it SEGA later. And they're like, but we could let you know if another job opens. And I'm like, all right, sure. I thought it was
Nobody all says that. Every company.
That's what everyone says, right? Like, so, maybe next time. And so I'm like, all right, well, that was cool. 6 months later, though, they sent me a message on the very forums I'm moderating, like, hey, we have an open spot. Would you like to interview? And I remember distinctly, it's like 11 at night, right? And here I am, I'm just a fan, and I looked at my monitor and I'm like, that says they want me to interview. Right? It's that moment when the excitement is boiling up, and you're like, oh man. And so I run out of the computer, I'm like, Dad. Of course, he's asleep. We go like, Dad, SEGA wrote back. SEGA, they want me to interview. Right? I'm so excited. And so I send my resume. One interview turns into a phone interview turns into me flying out, and eventually they offer me the job, and they say you have 2 weeks if you take it. It means you leave everything behind and come out to California.
Where are you leaving?
So I'm living in a place called Joplin, Missouri at this point. We have any people that know Missouri in the audience? Got a few of you, alright. And a lot of people that have probably never memorized the United States map, but that's okay. Missouri's not too far from you guys, right? It's the Midwest. Not a lot happens in Missouri, so for me to get an opportunity to go to SEGA, I couldn't say no. So I dropped everything. I didn't even know where I was going to live, and I just moved out to Sega to work there because that was my dream. So I've been at Sega now for 6 years. I started in Phantasy Star as a game master and moved up to a community manager spot after that. I got to work on games like Valkyria Chronicles. Yes. I got to then move into brand management, and one of the first titles I got to work on here was Sonic Generations. That warms my heart to hear you guys cheering like that. We put a lot of time into that game, so that's great.
Look at you guys.
And this guy also worked on some Sonic games that he hasn't talked about yet. So, no, he didn't work on
No,
Go
before my time.
So yeah, so I've been at Sega for about six, 7 years now. So that's kind of our history, who we are. So again, thanks for having us all. You guys ready to get into the nitty gritty, the history of Sega? All right.
I had to say, like, stuff that he's going to talk about the history of Sega going forward, and some of this stuff I actually don't know. This is going to be like new information for me. He keeps telling me in the office, like, I got some good stuff. The presentation's going to be good. Can you show it to me? Like, oh, it's not done yet. But now I'm going to kind of hear it for the first time with you guys, so I'm really excited.
There are going to be some questions that put Sam on the spot, and so I'm just going to be like, so Sam, since you work at Sega, do you know your Sega history?
You get crucified.
Yeah, probably.
I'm not going to be able to leave this room alive.
All right, cool. One thing I just thought of, actually, we're going to need to go back and cut the music that I have playing real quick.
You're right.
So can we go back to the manga real quick? And then you guys are going to have to help us out. We're going to have to, this is our daunting task.
It's going to be a team effort, because we can't really, you guys can really see what's going on. We
can't see this stuff on the sides. Here's what we have to do. Close Windows Media Player.
That's the task. We're going to crowdsource this operation.
Sounds like some very weird team building exercise.
This is the convention equivalent of a trust fall. That's about to happen. We trust you guys.
The tricky thing is that we actually already put up the presentation, so we also have to close the presentation.
Oh, actually, I just thought of something really simple, which would be to just unplug the VGA cable and then let it appear back on my screen. That was surprisingly easy.
That was pretty boring. Damn you and your logic and your good ideas.
All right, check it out. So now we're going to magically put the VGA cable back in. And the music is stopped. How did that happen? All right.
Okay.
The reason I needed the music to stop is because we're going to play a little movie for you guys later. So I kind of wanted you to be able to hear that. So please stay tuned. We have some really cool stuff for you guys. So if we could go, perfect. That's perfect. Woo. Sam or Stephen, where do you guys get your phones at real quick? I want to show some stuff.
I'm charging it.
You're charging. Stephen, you got the camera? Alright, sorry, we just need to record one thing. Would you guys mind if we took a video of you and showed it to the people at Sega? Oh, we might have to change the lights just to take on just a little bit, just for this one moment. That's true. I'll tell the Sega folks there are 8 billion people in the audience. Okay, so what we're going to do is he's going to record you guys on 3. You guys are super excited to be here with you guys today. We know many of you are going to have some very excellent questions in this panel. We're going to cover off a lot of information you may or may not know about Sega, its history as a company, where it is today, and then you guys can ask us questions about where is it going to go, right? However, we do love you guys. But I'm going to tell you now, there are going to be some questions that some of you are going to want to ask. You know who you are.
You know what questions we're talking about.
And so in an effort to save both our time and yours, because we're going to have to inevitably say, sorry, we can't talk about that, or sorry, I don't have the answer to that, right? We've just kind of put together a very quick list of the questions that we know we can't answer. So check it out. I put a lot of time into this, by the way. Here we go. And all right, here we go.
You guys time to read that. Just take it in. The torch isn't fire yet. As long as there's no fire in the audience.
Like, I was here to play some lucky hit.
Although, I don't know, do you guys think Shamu 3, A Whale's Quest for Revenge would actually be a pretty cool game? understand though that obviously, you know, we love a lot of these games. As I talked about, I'm a massive PSO fan, so I know a lot of you guys are like, where's PSO 2? Where's PSO 2? Right? I know it. I don't have the info for you, but I do know there's a lot of people that
Are you gonna ask
even
them,
now really love that series.
is there gonna be like crossover Virtual Fighter versus Street Fighter?
Now that we have established the ground rules, let's begin. If anyone wants a really in-depth look at Sega and Sega's history, I recommend this book. It just came out. It's called Console Wars. You guys know who Seth Rogen is, right?
Yeah.
Seth Rogen is actually making a movie about this stuff, right? The history of Sega and their battle against Nintendo, and it's based on this book. It's called Console Wars.
It's being played out with big lords.
Yeah.
Very much.
It's not very
And it doesn't have robots in it either.
No, it might have robots.
I brought that up.
It might have robots. No, probably not. But it might.
You guys are
So I recommend this book. It is a fantastic read. It goes into a lot more detail than we have time to cover here today. But it tells you all the different secrets of Sega and Nintendo in that battle. So, let's get right into it. So in the early days, Sega was a company that was actually not a Japanese company. Did you guys know that Sega was an American company?
Whoa! America!
It was owned by this guy called David Rosen, and this guy had what was called Rosen Enterprises at the time. And so Rosen,
Was it based on Hawaii or something?
yeah, it was actually based in Hawaii. You know, I kind of wish we were still based in Hawaii.
That'd be cool.
Just so we could like work in Hawaii all day, every day.
I had a friend in high school, one of the people who influenced me in the game industry. It was her dream to actually like work at Squaresoft when it was in Hawaii, and I like got her into it. She's like, you gotta go to Hawaii. The whole point of getting the game industry is to work at Squaresoft in Hawaii. And then like, you know, like 6 years after that, they closed the Hawaii office. And she's like, oh my god. There's no point in being in the game industry anymore if you can't go to Hawaii.
Does anyone here live in Hawaii? I see a hand. I see one hand. Oh, you've come a long way, sir. You've come a long way. We are all envious of you. All right, so let's jump forward. So in 1965, David Rosen merges his company with a Japanese group, right? This is kind of where Sega is born. But the thing is, the Sega name was established at this point, but it's based on something else. Does anyone know what the previous company name was that it was based on? I see a hand right there. Just shout out if you know it.
Service game.
Is he right, guys?
Pretty cool.
Yes. All right, let's hit for this guy. Well done, sir.
Was it right?
Sega sounds like a
Was it right?
Sounds like a Japanese.
It was a
Sounds
standard
like it
game,
means
then it became Service
Right?
Games.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Sounds like it means something.
Cool.
So service games, right? And in very typical Japanese fashion, they take the first syllables and they kind of combine them, and that's how you get this word. So the Se part of Sega is from service, and the Ga part from games. So Sega, there you go. That's how it came to be.
Oh.
All right, but at this point in time, right, in the 1980s, all right, how many of you guys were not born yet in the 1980s? Wow, everyone, really? And conversely, how many of you guys were alive in the 1980s? We're all old together, friends. So, Sega at this point is fighting a battle that's very one-sided, right? There's this company out there. You know what company that was?
It's Atari.
It wasn't 3DO, was it?
It wasn't
Atari.
That was a powerhouse.
No.
It's a big one. It's a big government. Audience, you guys know what it is, right? What was that company? Nintendo. That's right, Nintendo is correct. And Nintendo is out here dominating that market. They own like 80 to 90%, maybe 95% of the market share. That's a lot of the market share, guys. Like, imagine if one gas company had 95% of all the gas sales in the world. Or imagine if one food or fast food company had 95% of all the fast food sales. Like McDonald's. But that's the way the gaming industry was. And because Nintendo owned everything, they could dictate their own rules. And so they might say, well, we're only going to create maybe 20,000 copies of this third-party game. We can make that choice because we can say that there's just not enough hardware or software units to go around. So they could mandate kind of the prices and the inflation. And so in comes Sega. and I'm going to jump back here. So Sega knew that they needed somebody that was kind of crazy, someone that was willing to do some things that maybe would be regular over the market to try to attack Nintendo. And they hired this guy that used to work at Mattel as their new CEO of SEGA of America. Anybody know what his name was?
Yeah, that's a good names.
Silence real
Do
through.
you know his name? I think Tom. Tom what?
Alright, I got something to forget about. First letter, it's not Batman, but that's a great guess. First letter of his name is T. Tom Kalinske, there it is, very good. Let's hit it for that. Well done. And that is what Tom Kalinske looks like. So, Tom Kalinske had just finished at Mattel, and he had spent a lot of his career making this doll really popular. It was this doll that no one had ever heard of when he started working on it. Now we know it as Barbie. So, Tom's career started off by making Barbie really what it is today, and kind of skyrocketed down to success. But there was a lot of political drama at the top of the food chain at Mattel, and so eventually he left. So Tom joins, and he's like, all right, I'm going to get SEGA. And he comes up with this crazy idea, right?
Do you know where they actually swooped up Tom? So
On the beach, right?
Tom had just left Mattel, and he was on vacation with his family in Hawaii on the beach.
Always comes back to Hawaii. Everything starts in Hawaii.
It's all full circle. But I mean, they really, SEGA came through and was like, hey, we're gonna go ahead and interrupt your vacation, offer you something, a little crazy.
And I think in the Console Wars book, it actually tells the story. It's like he's sitting on the beach relaxing, and then this like ominous shadow comes over his face.
It's like Men in Black, like coming over or something. Like it's at the beach.
And this shadow comes up, and like he looks up, and there's this Japanese businessman like smiling down that much. Like, hello, Tom. It's good to see you. And but that was underneath the pitch. That's exactly right. And he thought about it for a while, and he wasn't sure. He was like, "Are they just trying to like? Is this like some weird revenge plot? Like they're going to try and get back at me and like publicly shame me or something like that when I take the offer?" You never know sometimes. But he eventually said yes, right? And so here they are, and he comes up with these ideas. But one of these ideas in particular, SEGA of Japan is not happy about. So, you guys all remember one of the old SEGA systems, really the one that put SEGA on the map. What was it called here?
Genesis. Master System.
Maybe, right? Yeah.
I can't hear anything over Pico.
Game Gear? Did I say Game Gear? It was the Genesis, that's right. It was the Genesis. It was also known as the Mega Drive in Europe, right? And in Japan. That's exactly right.
Only Genesis.
Yeah, it was called the Genesis here. And so Tom goes through. SEGA of Japan would like us to remind you all that Sonic's full name is Sonic the Hedgehog, not just Sonic. And we're doing this thing. Sam can tell you, having worked on Sonic, that things can be very particular, right? The way that SOJ does business can be very particular. And so Tom comes in, he goes, I have this idea. We're going to take Sonic the Hedgehog, which is going to be our best game ever, right? It's still in development. It's like, and we're going to package it with this reaction brought to you by. But that's probably about right, because here's this new American guy that's just kind of come on board, and he's like, oh, by the way, I'm going to take our crown jewels and just give them away for free. That's cool, right? And so the SEGA Japan guy's like, this guy's nuts. He's just crazy. I can't believe he would do that. We could make so much money just selling the game by itself. And everyone in the room pretty much disagrees with him. And the guy actually, the same guy that steps over him on the beach and is like, hello, Tom. I doubt he actually said it that way. I apologize to Nakayama-san if you're ever listening to this for painting you in such a creepy light. But essentially, the guy stands up and he's like, listen, Tom, not a single person in this room agrees with a word that you have said here today. And he kind of lets that sink in for a while. And Tom, in his mind, is like, well, it's been a great 6 months. Guess that's that. And then Nakayama-san finishes and says, but we hired you to do a job, and we're going to trust you to do it. And so, with those words, Tom was allowed to package Sonic with the Genesis. And as we know, right, that turned out to be one of the greatest decisions that that team had ever made. As a result of that, Sonic became one of the most popular games of all time and one of the best-selling of that era. And so, we're going to jump forward here. But it wasn't just Tom Kalinske, and that's what I think is really interesting. There were a lot of other people, too, that you may or may not have heard of. Anyone seen these guys before?
Yeah.
Like 10 of you said yes. All right. Let's educate the rest of you, because while Tom was the CEO, these guys were also doing a lot of hard work. One of the people you see there is Al Nielsen. He was one of the marketing directors at that time. You guys remember that there's this phrase that goes, Genesis does what?
Nintendo don't.
Nintendo, that's right. He was one of the guys that worked at the ad agency to come up with that kind of stuff, right? To go with that direction. Things that you guys have heard about, these are the people behind the scenes making it happen. Madeline Schroeder, she's the one up at the top there. We kind of refer to her as the mother of Sonic in many ways. Do you guys know what she did for Sega? Does anyone know? She did marketing. Yes. Made him a headshot, yeah, to start. Alright, so you guys probably know this already. When Sonic was first pitched out, he didn't look anything like he looks today. Well, there was an armadillo, there was a rabbit, there were all these designs, right? But there was also a very key characteristic that was cut. And that was that Sonic initially had a girlfriend. Anyone know what her name was?
Madonna.
It was Madonna. It was actually Madonna. And Madonna was this lovely, very well-endowed woman in a red dress. And you look at the concept art, you're like, I don't quite get this. And so when the initial designs for all of this came through, it was like Sonic's in a rock band, he's got a girlfriend named Madonna, he's the epitome of cool. And we're kind of like, the American team is like, that's just, I don't know if that's really what we define as cool. That's a little weird, actually. It's a little strange. And so Madeline went over to Japan, and she was like, all right, guys, we gotta cut this whole girlfriend thing, right? And you know, it's probably a good thing they did, because when you flash forward to the year 2006, we can see what would have happened. But you guys know it's true, right? That was like the original Sonic story. That's what it could have been. But that's what this lady, well, it actually got completely rewritten, technically, but we won't talk about that. But this lady went and fought for that, right? That's what she did at SEGA. And then finally, the last guy, Shinobu Toyota, I love this guy. So we got to meet these guys in person a few years back when they came in for this documentary we were filming for Sonic's 20th anniversary. And Toyota-san here is like, he's like the nicest guy. He's smiling the whole time. He's telling me like, so I was supposed to be SEGA of Japan's spy.
Double agent.
Yeah. He's like, I was sent over to kind of be the spy. And if SEGA of America got a little bit too unruly, out of control, I was to like let SOJ know immediately. They'd put the kibosh on it. They'd stop him. He's like, but the funny thing is, I kind of flipped sides.
The double agent.
The great thing about Toyota-san is that this guy made possible some of the great successes that SEGA had simply by not doing his job. Which is kind of great. One of the stories that he told me was that there was a commercial that SEGA released that compared the Super Nintendo to the Sega Genesis, right? And even the Nintendo, and they were like comparing the prices and saying, here's the graphics you get on the Nintendo, here's what you get on the Sega Genesis. Lower price, better graphics. And no one had ever done this before. No one had compared, like directly attacked their competitor. And the Japanese way was, oh, you don't do that. You never directly make fun of or attack your competitor. But look, this Sega team believed was that was how they were going to do it. That was how they were going to prove that they were the best system. And so they come up with this commercial, and Toyota-san sees it, and he's like, so I should probably tell SEGA of Japan about this. But I'm not going to until the night before. And then, oh, it's too late. They've already bought the ad space. It's already going to run. By the time
wait until nothing can be changed straight.
That's right.
Oh, I get that one so well.
That's right. Not that we do that at SEGA anymore, mind you. No, we mostly don't. So that was what they did, right? This is what some of these guys did. Really helped SEGA back in the old days. We also have this system. Who played it? The Sega Genesis. We have some really amazing games on the Genesis. I'd love to hear the crowd On 3, shout out your favorite Sega Genesis game. You ready?
Oh my God.
Take a moment, think about it.
Altered Beast!
There's so many good Call of Duty.
Streets of Rage!
Streets of Rage. Streets of Rage characters coming from the back of the house.
Hero!
Yeah, that's it. Yes, come right on it. Thank you. That's perfect. People are actually looking behind him. It's great. All right.
Streets of Rage!
Jets and radio. So, yeah, so at this point, on 3, call out your favorite Sega Genesis game. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Streets of Rage! Streets of Rage!
Wow.
Streets of Rage!
Great. Okay, Sam's writing down notes. We're going to combine all of these into a compilation, mix the storylines up, and then sell it for $5 on these. That may or may not actually happen in terms of that whole compilation thing. Probably not, sorry. But let's talk about the Genesis, right? It succeeded because of that strategy that Sega had. Sega was such a cutting-edge company at that time because they directly attacked their competitor. They did everything that Sega of Japan said you can't do, right? And it's really funny, but historically, you'll always find that Sega typically performs best whenever they're left to their own devices for own territory. Anytime that someone else comes in and mandates you must do it this way, things tend to not do as well. So, jumping forward, there's that Genesis stuff with Nintendo. Everyone knows that. Nintendo. Hey! So good. So good. Yeah. You guys know who the first video game character to ever appear in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade was, right? That's right. It was Sonic. Actually, though,
The hint is he starts his name starts with an S. You haven't guessed it already.
there's a bit of tragedy about the first Sonic balloon. Steven, you heard about this one? This is good. They created the first Sonic balloon, right? It's in the Thanksgiving Day Parade, but it's really windy that day. Like, super windy. Some of us have actually had the honor of going and running the more recent Sonic balloon, which you see there in the parade. I got to do that a few years ago, and it was a ton of fun, right? But it's really hard when it's windy, because that balloon is going all over the place. And you're looking up, and this massive balloon is teeter-tottering towards the building, and you're like, I really hope we don't hit anybody right now. And you try like to reel it back in, like, and unfortunately, the first year they had this balloon in the 90s, it flew into a telephone pole. It like popped, and it injured a policeman and a small child. That was the history of the first Sonic balloon. Now, thankfully, the story has a happy ending, because whenever we did the Sonic balloon again, more recently, we did it back for the 20th anniversary, the balloon did not hit anyone. And it actually survived the entire parade route, so, whew. Oh yeah, the Macy's guys are awesome. The amount of time and attention that goes into that balloon was just amazing. They make an actual model of this balloon out of clay. It's like hand done in clay. Yeah. And then all of that goes on to become the eventual.
Yeah, I saw like
Every 10 minutes after restart.
It's a little bit more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Does anyone also know what the longest running video game comic book in the world is?
Sonic, go ahead, Charles.
These questions are just too easy here.
I'm kind of setting them up, I suppose. But I've got a picture back here, so. You guys read it? I remember when I was like 6 or 7 years old, going into my first grade elementary school class and training my friend Ryan Williamson for creepy crawlers. You guys remember creepy crawlers? Ryan and I would trade creepy crawlers for comic books, and I remember very distinctly getting this comic book, that exact first issue. And I remember getting that and being like, oh man, this is so cool, and reading through it. And it's funny, like looking back on it now, and just remembering that exact moment in grade school. But it's how it is, we had all started. Yeah, where it all began.
Oh my God, take a seat.
How many of you guys on one of these? 3 people raised their hands. Yes. In the time that would follow, Sega would release 32X and the Sega CD. Home lovely games as Metroid, Knuckles Chaotix. And yeah, SPL, that's right, Shadow Chaotix. Sonic CD was a great game. Sonic CD introduced a new villain character. What was that villain character?
Metal Sonic.
Metal Sonic is correct.
Oh my god.
Does anyone know what I have referenced with the headline here? Shout out. Nice!
Nice.
You guys know when you're playing Call of Duty, wherever you are? Over there. You and I can't see because we're so blinded right now. Call of Duty. You know how you use that thumbstick to move around, look around the Call of Duty? In fact, most controls now have two of them. Do you know which system had the first thumbstick ever? I wouldn't really call it the Atari, no. The predecessor to the modern thumbstick was the Saturn. It was on a special controller for the Sega Saturn called the 3D stick, and it was actually indented. It didn't pop out, it was indented. It was a little bit.
It was a round controller.
Yes.
Round stick.
And Nights was this game where you flew around. You were this purple jester who flew around in a world of dreams. It's about as tricky as you can get. But it was awesome, right? It was a really, really cool game. And so the Sega Saturn did have a number of great titles in it. One called Sonic R. Guardian Heroes, a great game. Sonic Jam, yep. Any other great Sega Saturn games we missed?
Was Guardian Heroes? Hey, was Guardian Heroes that long ass game I played? Oh yeah, I love that game.
Burning Rangers! I love it.
What about Japan?
I might see Burning Rangers games.
Yes! Yes!
Alright, we might see that later.
Put up, get a couple drinks in before you, then he does the Burning Rangers thing.
So as Sega leaves the 32-bit time and world, they move on to the next console. And this is the console that would inevitably stay in Sega's last. Everyone knows what the name of that amazing console is, right?
Ahead of its time.
May it forever rest in peace. There it is.
Dreamcast forever!
This console, I don't know about you guys, this console was my life for like 4 years.
Hey! Crazy!
I see.
Where you at?
I played so much PSO, I played so much Sonic Adventure, Sonic Adventure 2, Choo Choo Rocket, you guys play Choo Choo Rocket?
Hell yeah!
Space Channel?
Virtual Fighter.
The House of the Dead too!
Someone said Skies of Arcadia. Skies is one of the most overlooked RPGs in history, I think. You've never played Skies of Arcadia. Absolutely recommend it. It's Sky Pirates, not Space Pirates, but close, yes. So this was the Dreamcast. Does anyone know though, this is actually a European Dreamcast? How can you tell?
That's a good question. It's very specific.
The blue symbol!
I heard it. It's the little swirly thing, right? The little swirly logo. In America, that was orange. In Europe, it was blue. Do you guys know why? Alright, legal reasons. If there's one thing that we hate at Sega, it's legal stuff.
Well, we hate being sued. Just like the next guy.
I should say, personally, the legal stuff, oh man, we have a fantastic team of lawyers at Sega. But that logo, that little swirly thing, was actually apparently copyrighted or owned by someone, and they're like, if you're going to use that logo, you have to pay me money. That's what we said. But it's like, you can own that, but apparently, yeah, you can.
Logo is a logo.
And so in Europe, they were like, we're not going to pay that money, so we'll just make it blue, because you don't own the blue one. And there you go, and now it's blue in Europe.
So a little fun fact, actually, as it applies to more of our recent games. How many of you guys have played Project UF? So you guys know the song Remote Controller? And Remote Controller, there's like a Dreamcast controller, right? And you'll notice on that Dreamcast controller, we use a blue swirl. But that's because it's the overseas version, and that version went out in Europe. In the Japanese version, they use the original orange swirl. So that's a way to tell the difference between the small little tweak we made between the versions.
There you go.
Nice.
The little star goes dun, 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 dun. But here's a look. Oh man.
Ben, Look, I love the Dreamcast, especially the next guy, but the D-pad, it was such a trouble. I always had so much trouble. Because I could get blisters on my thumb from it.
I had no problems with that D-pad. I don't know.
I just never got used to it, man. Every time I look at that, every time I look at the Dreamcast controller, I just think about it. It makes my thumb hurt.
I was thinking of the games, having your little portable games out there.
How cool is the VMU?
Well, I mean, how cool is it when you consider the VMU, you have your microphone is like SEGA? We had in my apartment when I was in college, we had a TV in the corner that was like a 13-inch TV that was dedicated to SEGA. So we just go over there and, hey, SEGA, how's it going? Turn up the heat on here, okay, you're talking about the roommate, but I'll go ahead and sit
Many people associate the Wii with having some first motion control.
No.
It was the Dreamcast actually been far earlier. Does anyone know what peripheral was it that featured that? There were two actually. The maracas, that's right. They went to maracas for this game called Samba de Amigo. Don't play that game.
Yeah.
Good game. And we have another controller. I heard somebody say it. Fishing controller. You could actually cast the rod, right? And you reel it back in. There was motion sensor peripherals out long before the Wii did. This was like 1999, 2000, 2001 era, right?
Like I said, ahead of time.
That VMU, the one thing I didn't like about the VMU was that it took this really specific type of battery. And when it would die, you had to get this super expensive battery. At the time, it was just cheaper to buy another VMU.
You know what's really interesting thing about the VMU? Like, if you work in the video game industry, and sometimes you have the chance to like go into like whatever game company you're working at, it's like back closet, right? That's where all this hardware gets thrown. Every company I worked at, I always go back there and find a VMU that still has the battery tab in it. It's really weird. It's like, you join a new game company, going back, where's the VMU? Every single time. All the companies I've ever worked at. So maybe people are like, I'm gonna save this for a rainy day when like I can't find batteries for VMU. I'm just gonna put it back or something. I don't know what's going on. Just a weird thing about the video game industry. You guys, if you ever get in the industry, you'll start to see that. So.
Potential future employers for Sam, make sure you get your VMUs ready so that we can continue.
Even if you don't have them ready, I will find you have them. You just don't know.
We should start hiding them around his
I'm just gonna like put VMUs with the tabs like on his desk,
I'm gonna
next chair. Who is this VMU? No. Like,
I'm sure they have them. We're sure they're lying around.
I do. So Sega's way ahead of its time with Dreamcast. They actually offer free online services.
Oh.
Yeah, ahead of time. It's like the internet before the internet.
Way ahead of its time. Unfortunately, it's almost too good, right? Sega takes massive losses as a result of it. And they also kind of don't have one key thing. Knows what that one thing was, right? Sadly, the future of gaming was decided not by games, but by movies. It was the DVD player that, in fact, pushed the PS2 towards success in many ways. And that was kind of when Sega had to bow out of the first-party market. But that wasn't the end for Sega. There was the birth of Sega Sammy. So, at this point, one of the top guys at Sega, I believe his name was Isao Kawa, he was a millionaire, right? He invested tons of money into Sega. They owed him a massive debt. And he passed away right around this time that Sega went third party. And upon passing, he donated and forgave all of the debt that Sega owed him, right? This guy's like a legend in Sega history in my book, right? Absolutely fantastic guy. And as a result of that, though, Sega's able to stay afloat, and a new company comes in. They're called Sammy. And then Sega and Sammy merge to become what is now Sega Sammy Holdings. And that's the Sega that we know to this day.
Do you guys know what Sammy's business is? You know what they do? Pachinko, yeah. They're like a pachinko slot machine type company.
Yeah, all right, so Sega moves forward. And in the years that follow, Sega would go on to do quite a few other things. They do a lot of movie adaptations with Marvel. They would do a lot of Japanese franchises. Sam, what was that? Sorry. Oh, okay. I thought he was like making fun of something. You wouldn't do that. A lot of the Japanese franchises come out. Some of them very strange, some of them very cool. Valkyrie fans, let's hear it. Valkyrie Chronicles, if you own a PS3, is one of the best RPGs on the platform, in my opinion. If you agree with now. So if you own a PS3 and have $20, it's only $20, guys. Go get it. It's amazing. Yeah, it's awesome. A lot of those games come out, and then SEGA also, of course, focuses on Sonic. So, to the surprise of many, Sonic joined forces with Mario. Right? Have any of you guys played the Sonic and Mario Olympic games? I see quite a few hands, which doesn't surprise me. Those games are some of the best-selling games that SEGA has done in the last decade. Right? Those two stars together, it kind of blew our minds that it's 90s gamers. Like, oh, I can't believe Mario and Sonic. It's just like, it's kind of like mixing two cultures. But you would love them individually, but of course you can combine. I don't know about mashed potatoes and peas, man. Like I don't know if you put those together and still enjoy them, but sure enough, people do. They love it, right? And then next up, let's talk a little bit about Sonic Boom.
I'm trying to understand the whole mashed potatoes and peas.
Right, that was the point.
I'm like everybody, everything together all the time. So there's Mario and Sonic thing. It's like all the time. What's the whole hate?
Well, I mean, I thought it was
So for like peas and mashed potatoes, I'm like, what's the big deal?
Well, I mean, it was such a fierce rivalry in the 80s and 90s that, or in the 90s, that, you know, being able to see still in the dynamic of the Olympics being that people are competing and it's a rivalry, but it was in a positive way, you know? Like, I don't know.
It was in Brawl.
Who likes seeing Sonic and Brawl?
Buck nasty.
Anyone excited to see Sonic again? Although Super Sonic was kind of broken, wasn't it? I mean, not that I'm complaining, because I can like hit you anywhere you go on the screen when you get Super Sonic. Sorry, buddy. So yeah, I mean, seeing Sonic on Nintendo platforms has kind of been a really cool change of history, if you will. And Sega and Nintendo teamed up recently, right? They announced 3 titles. That was Mario and Sonic, Sonic Lost World, which came out on the Wii U last year, and 3DS. That's right. That's right. Sam was the producer for Sonic Lost World, by the way. That game also had a nice level in there, like a whole nice section with bosses. It was really cool. Really nice.
And Zelda.
And it had Zelda DLC.
And Yoshi DLC.
Yeah, and Yoshi DLC. By the way, those DLC, those are free. So if you have Lost World, you can just go download the Zelda and the Yoshi DLC.
Zelda was really cool.
That was
Really
really
happy
cool.
about Zelda.
So there's our plug for Lost World. And the third game that is Nintendo exclusive is Sonic Boom, for the Wii U and 3DS. So jumping back to that. Yeah, good. So we'd like to show you guys a little clip. Some of you will have seen this already, but this is a clip from the upcoming CG animated TV show, Sonic Boom. Would you guys like to see it?
I'm really excited about it. I get to see the storyboards and stuff. I get this stuff before it's made, and it's cool.
What we can't talk about is how sometimes we get to like see the scripts and the storyboards and like that stuff. It's really cool. We're super excited for the TV show. So let's go ahead and play a little teaser and see how the audio works. Dear audio gods, please don't forget this.
Including some of the colors, a lot of some of the iterations, and Sonic Lost World as well. The voice actors are just so much fun to work with. They're great people.
Okay. So that is Sonic Boom, guys. Suffice to say, we're really excited to see that happen. Again, it's a combination of the animation we have, the video games coming out on the Wii U and 3DS. They're being developed in the West, which is really exciting. Big red button games. You guys probably you played some stuff they've worked on, and then also Sensar working on the 3DS.
They're based in South San Francisco.
Yep. So that is Sonic Boom. Unfortunately, though, Tails does die.
That's a spoiler. And he gets replaced by.
We replaced Tails with. Did someone say Big the Cat? Sam, you think what I'm thinking? I'm thinking we email SFJ tonight, tell them we have this great idea. We're going to replace Tails with Big the Cat. And every episode.
I think you're gonna sell that in. Just in a couple days.
You saw it. Sir, you're a genius wherever you are. You just changed the course of history. People are saying no.
emails.
All right, we'll see if we can keep tails. If we don't keep tails, be prepared for the Wicker Man scene involving the bees.
Not the bees!
That's how it's probably going to happen. So that's Sonic Boom, guys. And next, all right, let's open the floor up for some Q&A, and then we will officially end the panel. Panel staff, do we have 8 minutes left? Do you want us to wrap this?
Why don't you go back to the
Do you guys want to go over there?
Move.
All right, we're going to go back really quickly. Rewind some more. Alright, here we go. Back to the question. So, let's get some Q&A going. Start some lines.
let's do the lights so we can actually like
Is that good for the panel?
Awesome, thank you.
Oh, my vision!
Oh, we can see you again.
Can I stop it?
Okay.
Or not yet.
Let's take a roll.
Let's begin. Please go ahead, sir.
Virtual Fighter 6.
So you said you're wanting more Jet Set Radio and Panzer Dragon, is that right? Those are fantastic series, one of which will teach you about the concept of love. Yeah, you guys said that. There's no news on anything Jet Set or Panzer Dragon. Jet Set that actually released recently. You can get like an HD version of it.
I want to ask a question.
We'll pass on that love for those two franchises.
What question should I ask?
I've worked with the artistic director.
Yeah, but you guys can get Jet Set Radio on 360, on PS3, and also on
Next question, please.
Alright, I'm gonna take
As a person who's grew up with Sonic since 2, I am always playing.
the line of people wanting to ask questions.
So here's a picture going around Twitter. It's going viral of some kid. He showed the new concept of Sonic Boom. Knuckles, what's up? Did he skip the leg days or like he went to the gym without he skipped the leg days? It's gone viral. I don't know if you've seen the picture, but it's hilarious.
So I know the picture you're referencing. I don't have any commentary on that one. But let's talk about Knuckles, because that was the primary question, right? Like, why does Knuckles look different than Sonic Boom, right? And I know a lot of the reason that the Knuckles is different is because if you look at the silhouette of the characters, right? You look at the silhouette of the old Sonic characters. Here's Sonic, tail's a little shorter, here's Knuckles on Sonic's side, right? And Knuckles has the big spiked gloves to kind of emphasize that he's the power character. Beyond that, if you were to look at the silhouette of Knuckles, you wouldn't know that he was the power character.
Let's pretend you've never seen Sonic.
It's like, what do you think? Looking like that.
So one of the reasons that Knuckles appears to have skipped leg day.
There's some amazing concepts. I'm just like, that Sanji you met three times today, he was on point.
This guy is the strong guy. This is the guy you don't want to make angry, right? That's not so that's
like he even had the drawn out eyebrows all frozen and shit. Yeah, that was straight up.
Any change to something that you love and have put up with is heresy in the beginning, right? This is how it goes.
I just deal with it, so I never had a problem. I introduce new concepts.
Right on. Well, we appreciate that, and I think hopefully a lot of other people are starting to feel that way too. So, excellent question, sir. Thank you.
By the way, who wants your Twitter account? Been asking for a follow after 6 months. What's up with that?
I will
follow my best friend.
I will talk to Kelly Parker. She runs our Twitter account. We'll get you followed, sir.
Yes.
Second, we do what we can. All right, next question, please.
Hey, so unfortunately, this is also Sonic Boom related. I've read on the internet about how I can record Alter Toys. It's gonna sound terrible, but she had stopped recording Blue Army.
Yeah, I guess so.
SEGA